Okay, screen 1, I think. There's my little girls. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
All right, thanks for coming, guys. That's me. I'm Ron. I've been a motorbike mechanic for about 20 years. The last 2 presentations I did, we learned how to change the oil in a bike and maintain the chain on a bike, but this is the final presentation, so I thought I'd get a bit cerebral. And I know that none of you guys are into motorbikes anyway, so I thought I'd discuss something a bit more scientific and then describe how it relates back to my history.
I've been on long distance on a motorbike. I just have no idea how to maintain a motorbike.
That's okay. This presentation is going to apply to you, and you'll be amazed by how much stuff is actually covered by the basic principles that we're going to do.
Okay.
So today is a bit of housekeeping to get through, and I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. We're going to discuss his principles and how they've been put into place. Got a few questions for you, and at the end it'll all come together and you'll be able to contribute with your experiences, I think. But before we begin, I'd like to pay my respects and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of the land, rivers and sea. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the elders and past and present and emerging of all nations. You would have received a risk assessment via my invite email, so just make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. If you want to play along with your bike in your garage, that's fine, but you guys don't have one, so it doesn't matter. And I need to say, for legal purposes, always refer to the manufacturer's service manual. So this is my mate, Danny Bernoulli. He was a Swiss-German, died at the ripe old age of 82 years old. He was a mathematician and physicist, did a bit of work with probability and statistics, but he's most famous for the work he did with fluid dynamics, conservation of energy, and principles of mass continuity, but we'll discover that earlier. But all of the things that he's discovered have been the basic principle of things relating to me, basically, as a carburetor. That's actually a carburetor, that's a Weber. And there's my favorite airplane, the SR-71 Blackbird. So his discoveries are used in pretty much a lot of the things that we use today. So today's topic will be on sort of like 2 parts. We're going to discuss the Bernoulli principle and the Venturi effect. So he discovered the principle, and then in 1797, an Italian by the name of Giovanni Venturi came along, and I'll discuss that a bit later. But basically, and in viscous fluid dynamics, an incompressible fluid's velocity must increase as it passes through a constriction in accord with the principle of mass continuity, while its static pressure must decrease in accord with the principle of conservation of mechanical energy. Now, you're expected to memorize that word for word, and Angela is a teacher, so Harry, there will be points deducted for spelling errors. So I'm going to run through that, but here it says Venturi effect, and that's what we move on to next. But all this says, and I will go through it in more detail and break it down for you so you understand it. All this says is that if we've got a high pressure system here and a high pressure system here, there needs to be a low pressure system, and the result is a higher speed. But a visual demonstration of the actual Venturi effect is this psychedelic thing here. So if we've got air coming in and air going out, or fluid by that matter, then there has to be an increase in speed here. It's a very simple principle, but when you break it down, it applies to a lot of things. So do we understand viscosity?
Yeah.
Harry, have you ever heard that word?
I've heard the word, but I don't know what it means.
It means basically oil is thicker than water, yeah?
Oh, okay, yeah, but it floats on water.
So viscosity is the resistance to flow. So blood is thicker than water, oil is thicker than water.
Yep.
So an inviscid fluid just means that it's negligible viscosity, it's little to if a fluid's speed or rate of flow increases, then because of the principle of mass continuity, it states that the flow, what goes in must come out at the same rate. So when the pressure decreases, the speed needs to increase. And that's what we're seeing here. Stuff is going in at a rate and coming out at the same rate, but because of constriction, it needs to speed up, creating low pressure.
What happens if it doesn't?
It's the law. God has given us this principle. It's just that it does.
It does.
If there's a constriction here, somewhere in the middle, and this is where the Venturi effect comes along. So Bernoulli came along and explained the principle, and Venturi comes along and says, well, hang on, we use liquids and gases, which are fluids, in pipes. So if we put fluid in an isolated system and introduce a constriction, then Bernoulli's principle can do some work for us. So the way this relates to my field is that this is a carburetor, and there's that same shape. So if we've got a high pressure system here, there has to be one on the outside, and because we've introduced a restriction, there's a negative pressure system here, and the speed of the air going through it increases. And the airspeed that we've created sucks in fuel. That's me. That's how a carburetor works. So basically, Bernoulli comes along. He discovers the principle of mass continuity and exploits the conservation of energy theories, saying what goes in must come out in one form or another. So to put it in really simple terms, what goes in must come out, but if you restrict it, it has to increase. But the important thing to take away here is that there's a high pressure system here, a low pressure system here, and a high pressure system here. But Bernoulli says that pressure is an inverse proportion to speed. So if the pressure is high, the speed is low. If the pressure is low, the speed is high. It's a huge discovery. So considering that, that's the shape that I want you to look at. And to me, it applies to a carburetor. But just so that I know that you're following along, do you think you can identify the Venturi in this diagram?
So
Guys?
This bit, you mean like it's coming in here and going out that way?
Yeah, there's
pressure.
one point. Yeah, there's one point in this picture where the Venturi is.
Here? Oh, I'm looking where the arrow is, where it says speed up here causing a compressed. Is it there?
Yeah, that's actually it. Yeah, if I get my little pointer going.
Yeah.
It's actually this missing thing here. So there's the shape.
Yeah.
So there's the pipe with the constriction.
Yeah.
So there's our Venturi, and it sucks the fuel in through there. This is just a 90-degree version of the previous. So before I move on, I know there's a lot of theory there, but we're going to break it down a little bit more for you now. So have you got any questions?
No, not at the moment. That's okay.
No, all good for now.
So it actually makes sense.
It makes sense, but I can't remember every single thing, but I understand the pressure has to be high. And then what's the middle bit? And then the rest has got to be, the other end's high. What's the middle bit called?
It's the opposite. If you've got high pressure and low speed, the middle, the where the constriction is, you've got low pressure and high speed.
No, but with your diagram, you've got the high there, the high there. What's the bit in the middle called? This bit.
Where the constriction is?
Yeah, is that what that's called? The constriction.
Well, that's where the Venturi happens.
Venturi. Yeah. Okay, that's the Venturi. Yeah, yep.
Is that sort of like putting a nozzle on your hose?
Oh, Harry, you're jumping ahead of me, mate. You're doing well. Let me get to it. That's excellent. Yes, you're right. But I've just got a couple of questions that I need to run through so that we can get to that good stuff, because that's how it applies to you. So the aircraft design is based on which principle? Jump in. This is a 3-question test. Whoever wins gets a cherry right.
The first guy, what's it? How do you pronounce it?
Bernoulli?
Bernoulli.
You want to go with that one? Correct. Good stuff, Angela.
When you laughed, I thought I got it wrong.
All right, Harry, you got to catch up so we can have a tiebreaker. Next one's you. In which of the following is Bernoulli's equation? In viscid and compressible flow, irritational flow, viscous flow, compressible flow. Take a stab.
Is it the last one? Because you can, or is it the second guy that did the last one?
That's what Harry was going to say, right?
Yeah, the last one. The viscous
yeah,
and then the incompressed
yeah,
flow.
compressible flow, whatever it is, yeah.
No, number 4.
It's the bottom one, yeah. I'm going to give it to Harry anyway, so this is a tiebreaker.
Oh, that's not fair. Okay, Harry, I'll let you have it.
Which of the following principle is used in Bernoulli's? The conservation of energy, the conservation of mass, and the conservation of charge, conservation of momentum. I did mention 2 of them, even though I did rush over it, but this isn't that important.
It's
I just
moving.
wanted
to... the flow's moving. So is it momentum because it's moving?
Yeah, momentum.
Too.
Yeah, that's okay. It's actually the top one. I brushed over it. It's not that important. I just needed a third question to see if you guys were still awake.
Okay, yeah,
but basically, the conservation of energy principle is that whatever you put in has to come out in one form or another. But let's get to the good stuff. So what the hell are we talking about? Why is this important? I made a big thing of it in the beginning. But the theory is not so important, but how we've applied it is. So Bernoulli comes up with a principle, and Venturi is one example of a guy who comes in and says, well, hang on, we use fluids in a pipe. So what if we use that? But if we can run through a few examples. So the airplane I discussed earlier, you've got high pressure here, low pressure on the top, but the speed is increased, so it creates lift. And that's what you can see on this little diagram here.
Yeah.
When you blow across the top of a paper, it lifts it up.
Yeah.
And a Formula One car is the opposite. So we've got an upside down wing. So we've got airspeed increase down here. So it actually sucks the car to the ground, giving it more grip. So these principles are used in a lot more that we can go through here. But the basic principles are so important to the way we live our lives. It creates flight. Ever wonder why it's so windy in a city?
Buildings create it.
Thanks, Deb. All of this turbulence is created from low pressure systems. We can see the yellow stuff on the outside is high, and everything in through the middle has to get through faster. So if you can imagine the Twin Towers, the air going through the middle of them is quicker than the air going in front or behind them. And so when you get a series of towers like this, the air has to go over the top, and it creates all this turbulence in the middle. That's part of the Venturi effect. There we go, Harry. This guy's trying to water his lawn, but his finger is actually creating a Venturi.
Yep.
And if we talk about a spray painter, for example, we've got extreme high pressure from compressed air on one side through an extreme orifice, creating a massive Venturi. So can you think of any other examples?
You already said a high pressure hose. Well, I can just think of hose at the moment.
Yeah, that's because that's the one in front of you. You're
a
visual learner.
I know, my brain's not.
But look, there are heaps.
Air pressure. You know, when you clean things with a spray can and you spray it, and the air to. My son used to clean the inside of his computer and stuff.
100%. The nozzle of that thing is creating a big Venturi. You ever fill your car up with petrol? The nozzle at the petrol pump is creating a big Venturi. Harry, if you've ever blown your nose, you're creating a nasal Venturi. So congratulations on that one. And just to finish on a scary note, if you have a heart attack from high blood pressure, do you recognize that shape at all?
Oh, yeah. That means that there's more.
So that reaction was the exact one that I wanted. It's the same shape as we discussed in the original, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's up? But is there more coming out the other end? Like when I said to you before, like, is there more?
If you've got a high blood pressure problem, it's because there's a constriction in your artery.
Right. Okay.
If you get heart failure from low blood pressure, it's because there's a constriction somewhere else. Because remember, in the middle of a Venturi, there's a low pressure system, even though it's moving faster.
Yeah.
So in bones, in veins, arteries, we've got Venturis in our body. And look at this. When they treat your heart attack, look what it's called.
Oh, a Venturi mask kit. There we go. It's everywhere in life.
You suffer from a Venturi in your blood vessels, they fix you with a Venturi in your mask.
Okay.
So that's it from me, guys. Have you got any questions?
No, that was good. Thanks.
Ah, very clever the way you've done that, Ron.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man. Well, if you do have any feedback, I'd love to hear from it because I'm going to be doing this a lot more in the future, hopefully. So I'll send you a feedback survey in your email and hopefully I hear from you. If not, there's my email address if you need it. And I've enjoyed giving you the presentation and thanks for being such awesome students.
Yeah,
Thank
just send me.
you.
Yeah, I'll do it for you tomorrow, Ronnie.
Yeah, no worries, Harry. Thanks, buddy.
What's
Yeah.
it worth?
I'll
I
send
can
you
do
an
it for you tonight while I'm waiting between if you want to send it to me, Ron.
Yep, cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking, which I could tell you now, was quicker than writing it.
Yep.
I don't know then, like I like the aha at the end, but you know, with the hose and stuff, before you gave us all the theory at the beginning, if you gave us a bit more of the practical and then then the theory mightn't have been as much as, I don't know about you, Harry, but when he got that up, I really had to focus and concentrate on the language because although, as you said, I'm a teacher, I don't really teach science.
Yes.
So I really had to go, okay, what are these words and what do they mean?
Yeah.
I think if I saw the thing of the hose first and that sort of stuff, I'd like, okay, this isn't going to be, like at the end, it was like, oh yeah, I understand it. But at first, for a learner, I found that was sort of a bit like, oh, this is going to be hard, you know?
Yeah.
That's
No,
all.
I specifically wanted to rush through the theory because it's actually not that important. I really wanted to talk about the practical applications.
Okay. Yeah.
But I didn't.
You made us think we had to. You
No,
thought Harry was going to test us on the theory.
No, I just I didn't want. I needed to ask some questions,
Yeah.
and you did really well. I just didn't want to ask questions like who uses a garden hose because I knew Harry would come up with, something like that immediately, and you came up with some great examples as well. I specifically included some dense theory because it's not that actually important.
Okay.
The principle, you don't need to be an engineer to understand this. It's the principle that we use on our daily basis.
Yeah, that's good.
Without knowing it. So there's principles that we use without knowing it. So an unsung hero was Danny Bernoulli.
Yeah, that's good.
Good job.
Thanks, guys.
So did you actually, I can't remember if you actually made comment in the beginning that we didn't have to pay any attention as such to the theory, because I felt the same as Angela. That was one of my comments, that maybe turning it around a little bit and saying, hey, look at the hose, and then blah, 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 and then go in and say, well, this is actually how it works.
Yeah.
So just turning it around just that bit, because I don't think you actually said, look, I'm going to explain this to you, but it's not something that's a big deal. We're not going to learn this. We're just explaining the history of it. But yeah, so how do you think you went, Ron?
I think it went as planned, but I think that little caveat in the beginning would have been a calm down. It was a bit of a selfish endeavor. I wanted to include all of that heavy stuff because it wasn't important to the end result, because I wanted that aha moment.
Yeah. And you got that. You did get that, which is great.
Yeah. So I guess this wasn't really learning the actual theory. I just had to include it, but I didn't mention that. So yeah, that would have been a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of assumed that if I make a joke about it and rush through it, then they'll not worry about having to learn it.
Yeah, no, because as a learner, you're sitting here on edge, sort of listening to every little thing and thinking to yourself in your mind. Exactly. Thinking yourself in your mind, God, what do I need to actually take from this? What do I need to remember from this? So as a learner, that's what you're thinking. So if you'd have just sort of made the brush off comment early or swapped it round slightly so that your learners went, okay, I don't need to know this, but now I'm understanding it. Excuse me, that would have been good. Absolutely. Okay. Did a fantastic introduction of self. Your objectives were covered well, and a good acknowledgement. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a throat. Excuse me. Okay. Fantastic referencing for legal purposes. I must say that you must refer to the manual. Well done on that. You've actually still sharing your screen. Did you still want to share it?
Oh, is that why I'm frozen? I kept turning my video on and off because I thought it was my video.
Okay, so you are still frozen though. We're looking at that black screen again, Angela.
Okay.
So that's all good. So that was really, really good. And yeah, in your area specifically, you must obviously mention exactly that. For legal purpose, I must remind you to refer to your user manual. Great job. Okay. Love your WHS coverage. Did that well. I liked your zooming in and out of points, areas in the presentation to show us which one you're actually looking at rather than just using the pointer. Great use of humour. Your jargon was good, and then you explained clearly what was meant by that paragraph. So just let me get it right. So Benoli's was the first one, wasn't it? The first picture with all the blurb on it, and then you went through and explained that Venturi Effect was actually this.
Yeah, I think the GIF was really helpful because you actually see the airflow.
Yeah. It was really, really good. Really good. Sorry, Harry?
I said, is that like an hourglass, a Venturi rod?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yep.
If you think of how slow the sand is moving on the top of an hourglass, and how fast it actually travels through the little orifice in the glass, it's still the same amount of sand on the bottom.
Yep. Great presentation skills. Really, there's not much there that I have to be picky about, to be honest. You did it. The only thing, as I said, is like Angela's pointed out, maybe turning that bit around. That's probably the only thing that I would have, or at least mentioned, you know, you are not tested on this. This is just a little bit of history that we're just going to brush over. So make it very clear that they don't have to turn their brain on.
Well, I kind of made the comment that there will be, you need to memorize it word for word.
You did, yes.
I kind of thought that it would get that point across that you don't need to worry about any of this stuff.
But gathered it wasn't word for word, but did need to know something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And I heard that, and the fact you were laughing and you did say that. But when it came down to it, as a learner, you're still going, oh, how much of this do I actually have to retain? So, yeah, but it's still a great job. If there's anything, that's the only thing that I would pick on that. You've done a really, really good job.
Cool. Thank you.
Really good job. Okay.
Thanks, Ron. It was great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Well done, Ron.
Thanks, Harry.
Right,
Good on you, mate.
stop the recording and then stop